The young shop owner looked at her with barely hidden irritation. "Anna, you're moving too slowly. The customers need faster service." His voice carried the sharp edge of someone who thought age meant incompetence. Anna Mitchell, 58 years old, carefully placed the antique clock back on its shelf and turned around slowly. She had been working at Heritage Antiques for only 2 months, but already she could feel the weight of his judgment. She didn't argue. She never did. She simply nodded and continued organizing the vintage jewelry display. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story of respect, courage, and the value of a life spent saving others, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe that true heroes never really retire, hit that subscribe button. These stories need to be heard. The antique shop sat on Maple Street, a charming place filled with vintage furniture, old paintings, and collectibles that told stories of generations past. Anna had found the job 2 months after her retirement from the Metropolitan Emergency Services, where she had worked as an ambulance driver for 30 years. She didn't need the money. Her pension was adequate, but she needed something to fill the quiet hours that stretched endlessly before her. The job advertisement had been simple. Part-time sales associate needed. Patient personality required. Anna had more than patience. She had spent 3 decades racing through city streets with sirens blaring, carrying people through their worst moments. And she understood the value of staying calm under pressure. When she walked into the shop for her interview, she felt drawn to the peaceful atmosphere. After 30 years of emergency calls, car accidents, and life or death situations, the gentle quiet of the antique shop seemed like exactly what she needed. The previous owner, Mr. Harrison, had been understanding during the interview. He was a veteran himself, someone who appreciated the weight that certain careers carried. But Mr. Harrison had sold the business just 3 weeks after Anna started, passing it on to his nephew, Tyler Harrison, a 26-year-old business school graduate who saw antiques as profit margins rather than pieces of history. Tyler looked at Anna and saw an older woman who asked too many questions about the stories behind each piece, who spent too much time talking with customers about their memories, and who moved with the careful deliberation of someone who had learned that rushing could cost lives. He didn't see the steady hands that had performed CPR while speeding through traffic. He didn't notice how she automatically checked the shop's first aid kit every morning, or how her eyes instinctively tracked the nearest exits in any room she entered. What he saw was inefficiency. "Anna," Tyler said one Friday afternoon, his tone sharp enough to cut through the gentle atmosphere of the shop. "We need to talk." Anna was helping an elderly customer examine a vintage music box. The woman had been telling her about how her grandmother had owned one just like it, and Anna had listened patiently, understanding that sometimes people needed to share their memories as much as they needed to make a purchase. "Excuse me," Anna said politely to the customer. "I'll be right back." She followed Tyler to the small office behind the main counter. The space was cramped, filled with inventory records and price tags. Tyler sat behind the desk like he was conducting a business meeting, his tablet open, his expression serious. "I've been reviewing your performance," he began, not inviting her to sit. "Your transaction time is too slow. You spend too much time chatting with customers instead of focusing on sales." Anna stood quietly, her hands clasped in front of her. She had heard similar criticisms before, but never about taking time to care for people. "Furthermore," Tyler continued, "I've noticed you're having difficulty keeping up with the physical demands of the job. Moving furniture, reaching high shelves, standing for long periods." "I manage just fine," Anna said calmly. "And the customers seem to appreciate the personal attention." Tyler waved his hand dismissively. "Personal attention doesn't increase our profit margins. Efficiency does. Speed does." He paused, then delivered his verdict with the confidence of someone who had never been responsible for anyone's life. I think it might be time for you to consider finding something more suited to your limitations. Anna felt something familiar settle in her chest. Not anger, not even hurt, just the steady calm she had developed over 3 decades of handling emergencies. People in crisis often said things they didn't mean. I see, she said quietly. And when would you like me to finish? Today seems appropriate, Tyler said, already turning back to his tablet. I'll have your final paycheck ready by closing time. Anna nodded once, turned, and walked back to the elderly customer who was still examining the music box. She spent the next hour helping the woman decide on the purchase, sharing what she knew about the piece's history, her voice steady and warm, giving no indication that her world had just shifted beneath her feet. At 4:30 p.m., Anna was gathering her few personal items from behind the counter when the sound reached her ears. It was a sound she knew better than her own heartbeat, the screech of brakes, the sickening crash of metal against metal, followed by the terrible silence that meant people were hurt. The accident had happened right outside the shop. Through the large front windows, Anna could see a delivery truck had collided with a small sedan at the intersection. The sedan was crumpled on the driver's side, and she could see at least 2 people inside who weren't moving. Tyler looked up from his tablet, annoyed by the noise. Great, now there's going to be sirens and police cars blocking our entrance all afternoon. But Anna was already moving. 30 years of training had taken over, and she was heading for the door before her conscious mind had even processed what she was doing. Where are you going? Tyler called after her. You can't just leave in the middle of your shift. Anna didn't respond. She was already outside, her trained eyes quickly assessing the scene. The delivery truck driver was standing beside his vehicle, shaken but apparently uninjured. The sedan was a different story. She could see a young woman in the driver's seat, conscious but clearly dazed, and an elderly man in the passenger seat who wasn't responding. Anna reached the sedan and knelt beside the driver's window, which had been shattered in the impact. I'm Anna, she said calmly to the young woman. I'm here to help. Can you tell me your name? Jessica, the woman whispered, blood trickling from a cut on her forehead. My grandfather. Is he? Anna was already checking the passenger. The elderly man had a pulse, but it was weak and irregular. She could see that he was having trouble breathing. She knew the signs. This could be a heart attack triggered by the trauma of the accident. Jessica, I need you to stay very still, Anna said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had been in this situation hundreds of times before. Don't try to move until the paramedics arrive. I'm going to help your grandfather. She moved around to the passenger side of the car. The door was jammed, but she could reach through the broken window. The elderly man's breathing was becoming more labored. Anna checked his pulse again. Definitely irregular. She needed to keep him stable until the ambulance arrived. From her years of experience, Anna knew that emergency services would take at least 6 minutes to reach this location. In a cardiac episode, those 6 minutes could mean the difference between life and death. She placed her hand on the man's chest, monitoring his breathing. Sir, can you hear me? I'm Anna, and I'm here to help you. The man's eyes fluttered open. My chest, he whispered. Can't breathe. Anna recognized the signs immediately. She had seen this exact situation countless times. The trauma of the accident had triggered a heart attack. She needed to keep him calm and stable. I know it's scary, she said, her voice steady and reassuring. But I'm going to stay right here with you. I want you to try to breathe slowly and evenly. Focus on my voice. Behind her, a small crowd had gathered. Tyler had come outside and was standing at the edge of the scene, looking uncomfortable and out of place. "Someone should call 911, one of the bystanders said. "Already done," Anna replied without turning around. She had pulled out her phone and called emergency services the moment she reached the car, a habit so ingrained after 30 years that she did it automatically. The elderly man's condition was deteriorating. His breathing was becoming more shallow, and his skin was taking on a grayish pallor that Anna recognized as a sign of oxygen deprivation. "Sir, I need you to stay with me," she said firmly. "What's your name?" "Robert," he gasped. "Robert Chen." Anna noticed that Tyler had moved closer when he heard the name, his expression shifting from annoyance to concern. "Robert, I'm going to help you sit up a little bit. This will help you breathe easier." Anna carefully adjusted his position, supporting his weight to reduce the strain on his heart. It was a delicate maneuver that required years of experience to do safely in a damaged vehicle. She could hear sirens in the distance, but they were still several minutes away. Robert's pulse was becoming weaker. Anna made a decision based on 3 decades of emergency experience. "Robert, I'm going to check your medications. Do you take anything for your heart?" With Jessica's help, Anna found Robert's medication in his jacket pocket. Heart medication, as she had suspected. She quickly read the label and calculated the timing of his last dose. "Robert, when did you last take your medication?" "This morning," he whispered. The sirens were getting closer, but Anna could see that Robert was fading. His lips were starting to turn blue, a clear sign that his heart wasn't pumping effectively. Drawing on her decades of emergency training, Anna began talking Robert through breathing exercises while monitoring his pulse. She positioned him to maximize blood flow to his brain and kept him conscious through the force of her voice and presence. "Stay with me, Robert. I know you're tired, but I need you to keep fighting. Help is almost here." The ambulance arrived exactly 7 minutes after the accident. Anna automatically noted the time, a habit from her years of filing incident reports. The paramedics jumped out and immediately took in the scene. "What do we have?" the lead paramedic asked as he approached. "2 victims," Anna replied without missing a beat. "Driver has a head laceration, appears stable. Passenger is Robert Chen, approximately 75 years old, cardiac episode triggered by accident trauma. Pulse weak and irregular, breathing shallow, medications in pocket." The paramedic looked at her sharply. "You medical?" 30 years, Metro Emergency Services, Anna said simply. "Retired 2 months ago." The paramedic nodded with immediate understanding. "What's his status?" "Stabilized for now, but he needs to get to cardiac care immediately. I've been monitoring his pulse for the last 8 minutes. It's weakening." The paramedics moved with practiced efficiency, taking over Robert's care while a second team attended to Jessica. As they prepared to transport both patients, the lead paramedic turned back to Anna. "Good work keeping him stable. You probably saved his life." Anna just nodded. It was what she had done for 30 years. It was who she was. As the ambulances pulled away, the crowd began to disperse. The police took Anna's statement as a witness, noting her background and professional assessment of the scene. Tyler stood to the side, watching everything with the expression Anna couldn't quite read. Tyler looked genuinely embarrassed. "I want you to stay, please. I was wrong about you." Anna considered this for a moment. "Tyler, I don't think you understand what you're asking. For 30 years, every day I went to work knowing that someone's life might depend on my actions. I've delivered babies in the back of an ambulance, performed CPR on children, and held the hands of people taking their last breaths. I've seen things that would give you nightmares for the rest of your life." She paused, her voice still calm but carrying weight that hadn't been there before. "When you told me I was too slow, too old, too inefficient, You weren't just insulting an employee. You were dismissing 3 decades of service to this community. You were dismissing every life I've saved, every family I've helped through their worst moment. Tyler opened his mouth to respond, but Anna continued. But what bothers me most is that you made that judgment without ever asking who I was or what I'd done. You saw gray hair and decided I had nothing valuable to offer. She picked up her small box of personal items and headed for the door. Anna, please, Tyler said. I want to make this right. Anna paused at the door and turned back. Then learn to ask questions before you make judgments. Learn to see people for who they are, not what they look like. She walked out of Heritage Antiques and down Maple Street, leaving Tyler standing alone among the antiques and the weight of his own assumptions. But Anna's story was far from over. 3 days later, Jessica Martinez and her grandfather, Robert Chen, walked into Heritage Antiques. Robert was moving slowly but steadily, his color healthy, his eyes bright. Tyler was working behind the counter when they entered. "Excuse me," Jessica said. "We're looking for someone who works here." "Anna Mitchell?" Tyler looked up, recognizing them immediately as the accident victims. She doesn't work here anymore." "What do you mean?" Robert asked, his voice stronger than it had been that day on the street. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. "I had to let her go. Business reasons." Jessica and Robert exchanged glances. "Do you know how to reach her?" Jessica asked. "I'm not supposed to give out employee information," Tyler said. "That woman saved my life," Robert said firmly. "The doctors at the hospital told me that if she hadn't kept me stable and positioned properly, I would have died before the ambulance arrived. They said whoever helped me knew exactly what they were doing." Tyler stared at them. "She really saved your life?" "Without question," Jessica said. "The paramedics told us that her actions in those first few minutes made all the difference. We want to thank her properly." Tyler hesitated, then made a decision. "I don't have her contact information, but I know she lives somewhere in the downtown area. Maybe try the community center. Someone there might know her." After they left, Tyler stood alone in the shop, thinking about what Robert had said. Anna had actually saved someone's life right outside his door, and he had fired her 3 days later. Word spread quickly in the small community. Jessica had posted about the accident on social media, praising the angel who had helped them. She described Anna's calm professionalism and life-saving actions. The post was shared dozens of times, and soon other people began commenting with their own stories. "Was this Anna Mitchell?" wrote Sarah Rodriguez. "She was my ambulance driver when I had my accident 5 years ago. She stayed with me the entire time, holding my hand and talking me through the pain. Anna Mitchell saved my son's life," added another comment. "He was choking at a restaurant, and she happened to be there. She knew exactly what to do." More comments followed, each with a similar theme. Anna Mitchell, the quiet woman who had worked at the antique shop for 2 months, had apparently been saving lives in their community for 3 decades. Tyler read every comment, his understanding of what he had done growing heavier with each story. A week later, Tyler was working alone in the shop when the door chimed. A man in his 40s entered, wearing a police uniform. Behind him came a woman in firefighter gear, then another man in paramedic clothing. One by one, they filed into the small shop until nearly a dozen first responders filled the space. "We're looking for Anna Mitchell," the police officer said. "We heard she worked here." Tyler's throat felt dry. I had to let her go last week." The firefighter stepped forward. "Let her go? Why?" "Business reasons," Tyler said weakly. "Business reasons?" The paramedic looked incredulous. "Do you have any idea who Anna Mitchell is?" Tyler shook his head. The police officer spoke first. Anna was my training partner when I started with Metro Emergency Services 15 years ago. She taught me how to stay calm under pressure. She saved my career, probably my life. The firefighter added, Anna coordinated with our department on hundreds of calls. She was the best ambulance driver we ever worked with. When there was a multi-car accident or a building collapse, we specifically requested Anna's unit because we knew she could get patients to the hospital alive. She delivered my daughter, said one of the paramedics. My wife went into labor early, and Anna happened to be the one who responded. She kept both my wife and baby safe during the most terrifying 20 minutes of my life. Each of them had a story. Anna had worked with all of them over her 30-year career. They had come to the shop because they had heard through the first responder network that Anna was working there, and they wanted to visit her. Where is she now? The police officer asked. I don't know, Tyler admitted. I didn't get her address. The first responders exchanged glances. They were clearly not pleased with Tyler's answers. You fired a woman who saved hundreds of lives in this community, the firefighter said. Do you understand that? Tyler felt smaller than he had ever felt in his life. I didn't know. She never told me about her background. Maybe you should have asked, the paramedic said. Anna doesn't brag about what she's done. She's not that kind of person. But what she's done for this community is immeasurable. After they left, Tyler sat alone in his shop, surrounded by antiques and the weight of his mistake. He had dismissed Anna as inefficient and slow, when in reality she had been one of the most important people in their community. That afternoon, Tyler closed the shop early and drove to the community center. He found Anna in the volunteer section, helping coordinate a blood drive. She was wearing the same careful, methodical approach to organizing donation schedules that she had brought to arranging antiques. When she saw him, her expression didn't change. Tyler. Anna, I need to talk to you. She finished entering information on a volunteer form before looking up at him. I'm listening. I've been learning about who you really are, Tyler said. The accident victims came to the shop. First responders, people whose lives you've saved. Anna nodded but didn't respond. I made a terrible mistake, Tyler continued. I judged you without knowing anything about you. I saw someone older and assumed you had nothing valuable to offer. Yes, Anna said simply. You did. Tyler took a deep breath. I want to offer you your job back, with a raise, and I want to apologize for my behavior. Anna considered this for a moment. Tyler, do you know why I took that job at your shop? He shook his head. For 30 years, I spent every day dealing with emergencies, life and death situations, people at their worst moments. It was meaningful work, but it was also exhausting. When I retired, I thought I wanted peace. Quiet. A place where nothing urgent ever happened. She paused, looking around the community center, where volunteers were efficiently coordinating the blood drive. But I realized something these past few days. I don't need quiet. I need purpose. I need to feel useful. Tyler nodded. The antique shop could give you that. No, Anna said gently. The antique shop was just a place to pass time. This is where I belong. She gestured to the blood drive coordination area. This is where I can still make a difference. Tyler looked deflated. So you won't come back? Anna studied his face. Tyler, you're young and you made a mistake. But you're here, trying to make it right. That says something about your character. She stood up from her chair and faced him directly. I'll give you some advice, not as someone you fired, but as someone who spent 3 decades working with people in crisis. When you meet someone new, don't assume you know their story. Ask questions. Listen to their answers. Everyone has something valuable to offer, but you have to be willing to see it. Tyler nodded, understanding that this was more than just advice about employment. And remember, Anna continued, that experience isn't a limitation. It's a resource. The person you think is too slow might be the person who saves a life because they know to take their time and do things right. She picked up her coordination materials and prepared to leave. Anna, Tyler said, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. Really sorry. Anna looked at him one more time. I know you are. Learn from this. Be better. As Anna walked away, Tyler stood in the community center, watching her coordinate with volunteers half her age who clearly respected her experience and listened to her guidance. He realized that Anna hadn't just been organizing antiques during her time at his shop. She had been wasted there. 6 months later, Tyler was reading the local newspaper when he came across a small article in the community section. Anna Mitchell had been honored by the mayor's office for her volunteer work coordinating emergency preparedness training for local businesses. The article mentioned her 30-year career with Metro Emergency Services and noted that she had been instrumental in establishing new safety protocols that had already prevented several workplace accidents. When the officers finished with her, Anna walked back toward the shop. Tyler intercepted her at the door. That was... He began, then stopped. I had no idea you were... you never mentioned... Anna looked at him calmly. You never asked. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Look, about earlier. About letting you go. Maybe I was hasty. No, Anna said quietly. You were right about one thing. I don't belong here. She walked past him into the shop to collect her things. But Tyler followed her. Wait, he said. I was wrong. What I just saw out there, that was incredible. You saved that man's life. Anna turned to face him. I did my job. It's what I've been doing for 30 years. But why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say you were a paramedic? I was an ambulance driver, Anna corrected. And I didn't tell you because you didn't ask. You looked at me and saw someone old and slow. You didn't see someone who might have something to offer. At the bottom of the article was a quote from Anna. Real service doesn't end with retirement. It just finds new ways to help. Tyler cut out the article and framed it. He hung it behind the counter at Heritage Antiques, where every customer could see it. Underneath the frame, he placed a small sign that read, Everyone has a story worth knowing. The antique shop still operated on the corner of Maple Street, but Tyler had changed how he ran it. He learned to ask customers about the stories behind the pieces they were looking for. He hired older employees and listened to their experiences. He discovered that patience and conversation actually increased sales because people trusted someone who took time to understand what they needed. Anna continued her volunteer work at the community center. She trained new emergency responders, coordinated disaster preparedness programs, and organized blood drives. She never returned to Heritage Antiques, but she didn't need to. She had found a place where her 3 decades of experience were valued, where her knowledge could help others, and where age was seen as wisdom rather than limitation. Sometimes she would drive past the shop and see Tyler talking patiently with an elderly customer, taking time to hear their story about a piece of furniture or a vintage photograph. When she saw that, she would smile, knowing that sometimes the most important lesson you can teach someone is how to see the value in others. The intersection where the accident had occurred was eventually improved with better traffic signals and safety features. A small plaque was installed nearby, donated by the first responder community, recognizing the importance of everyday heroes who step up in times of crisis. It didn't mention Anna by name, but she knew it was there. Anna Mitchell had spent 30 years driving through city streets with sirens blaring, racing to help people in their worst moments. She had saved hundreds of lives, delivered dozens of babies, and provided comfort to thousands of families during emergencies. When she retired, people assumed her days of saving lives were over. But heroes don't really retire. They just find new ways to serve. Anna's story spread quietly through the community, shared among first responders, emergency room staff, and the families she had helped over 3 decades. She never sought recognition, never told her own story, never demanded respect. But her actions spoke louder than any words could. Tyler learned that day that when you dismiss someone because of their age, their appearance, or your assumptions about their capabilities, you might be dismissing a hero. You might be turning away someone who has dedicated their life to service, someone who has knowledge and experience that could change everything. Anna Mitchell taught him that real value isn't measured in speed or efficiency. It's measured in lives touched, problems solved, and communities served. It's measured in the quiet strength that comes from 3 decades of answering the call when others need help. And sometimes, when someone looks old and slow to you, they might just be the person who will save your life. So I ask you now, have you ever met someone like Anna? Someone whose quiet presence carried the weight of years spent serving others? Someone who was dismissed or overlooked because people couldn't see past the surface to the hero underneath? Write their name in the comments. Share their story. Let others know about the everyday heroes who work among us, saving lives and serving communities without asking for recognition or thanks. Because at the Human Stories, we believe that heroes come in all ages, and the most powerful ones often work in silence. They don't wear capes or seek spotlights. They just show up, do the work, and change the world one life at a time. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, share it, subscribe, and help us honor the Anna Mitchells of the world, the quiet heroes who never stop serving even when the world stops noticing. And next time you meet someone older, someone who moves a little slowly or talks about the old days, remember Anna's story. Ask them about their past. Listen to their experiences. You might discover that you're talking to a hero, but Anna's impact on the community was just beginning to unfold in ways no one could have predicted. 2 weeks after the article appeared in the newspaper, Anna received a phone call that would change everything. The voice on the other end was crisp, professional, and unfamiliar. Ms. Mitchell? This is Director Patricia Hawkins from the State Emergency Management Agency. I'd like to discuss an opportunity with you. Anna was sitting in her small apartment, having just returned from her volunteer shift at the community center. She had been training a group of local business owners in basic first aid techniques, work that felt natural and fulfilling, but hardly seemed worthy of state attention. I'm listening, Anna said, settling into her favorite chair by the window. We've been following your volunteer work in the community, and we're aware of your extensive background with Metro Emergency Services. We have a proposal that might interest you. Director Hawkins explained that the state was launching a new initiative called the Community Emergency Response Network, or CERN. The program was designed to train civilians in emergency response techniques, creating a network of qualified volunteers who could assist professional first responders during large-scale emergencies. We need someone to lead the training program, Director Hawkins said. Someone with real field experience, someone who understands both the technical skills and the emotional challenges of emergency response. Your name came up repeatedly in our discussions. Anna was quiet for a moment, processing the offer. Who recommended me? Actually, multiple sources. The paramedics you worked with over the years have been advocating for you. The police and fire departments speak very highly of your professionalism. And recently, we received a detailed letter from a young business owner who described how your actions saved 2 lives in a traffic accident. Anna realized that Tyler must have written to the state agency. Despite everything that had happened between them, he had taken the time to document her heroic actions that day. The position would be part-time initially, Director Hawkins continued. but it could expand based on the program's success. You'd be developing curriculum, training instructors, and overseeing the certification process for civilian emergency responders. It was exactly the kind of work Anna had been hoping to find: meaningful, challenging, and directly connected to her 3 decades of experience. "I'd like to learn more," Anna said. 3 days later, Anna found herself in the state capitol, sitting in a conference room with Director Hawkins and a team of emergency management professionals. The meeting was supposed to last an hour, but stretched to nearly 3 as Anna shared insights from her years of field experience. "The most important thing people don't understand about emergency response," Anna explained to the group, "is that technical skills are only part of the job. The bigger challenge is maintaining calm in chaos, making quick decisions with incomplete information, and providing emotional support to people experiencing the worst moments of their lives." She described scenarios from her career: the apartment fire where she had to convince a terrified mother to hand her baby down from a third-story window, the highway accident where she had performed CPR on a teenager while his friends screamed nearby, the flood response where she had worked for 18 straight hours, evacuating elderly residents from a nursing home. "Each situation required different skills," Anna said, "but they all required the same fundamental approach: stay calm, assess quickly, prioritize based on need, and never give up on someone who can be saved." Dr. Richard Morrison, the state's chief medical officer, leaned forward. "Anna, how do you teach someone to stay calm when everything around them is falling apart?" Anna smiled slightly. "You don't teach them to stay calm. You teach them to function despite not being calm. Fear is normal. Panic is normal. But you can learn to work through those feelings instead of being paralyzed by them." She explained her approach to training new ambulance drivers, which had evolved over years of mentoring young paramedics. "I always told them that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to do what needs to be done, even when you're scared." Director Hawkins took notes throughout the meeting. "Anna, your perspective is exactly what this program needs. Most emergency training focuses on procedures and protocols, but you're talking about the human element that makes those procedures effective." The meeting concluded with an offer that exceeded Anna's expectations. She would be hired as the state's Director of Community Emergency Response Training, a position that would involve developing training programs for civilian volunteers, coordinating with local emergency services, and establishing protocols for deploying trained civilians during large-scale emergencies. "There's one more thing," Director Hawkins said as the meeting was ending. "This program has the potential to be a model for other states. If it's successful here, you might find yourself consulting on similar programs across the country." Anna accepted the position, feeling for the first time since her retirement that she was truly moving forward rather than just filling time. Her first task was to design a comprehensive training curriculum. Anna approached this challenge the same way she had approached every emergency call during her career: methodically, thoroughly, and with attention to every detail that could make the difference between success and failure. She spent weeks researching existing emergency response training programs, identifying their strengths and weaknesses. She interviewed paramedics, firefighters, police officers, and emergency room staff about what they needed most from civilian volunteers. She reviewed case studies of disasters where civilian responders had made crucial differences. What emerged was a program unlike anything that had been attempted before. Anna's curriculum combined technical skills training with psychological preparation, scenario-based practice with academic learning, and individual competency development with team coordination. The program was structured in 3 phases. Phase 1 focused on basic skills: CPR, first aid, emergency communication, and crowd management. But Anna insisted that this phase also include training in emotional resilience, stress management, and decision-making under pressure. You can teach someone how to perform CPR in a calm classroom, Anna explained to her development team, but they need to understand how different it feels when they're trying to save the life of a child while their mother is screaming and sirens are wailing and there's blood everywhere. Phase 2 involved advanced scenario training. Anna designed realistic emergency simulations that challenged trainees to apply their skills in chaotic, high-pressure situations. These scenarios were based on real emergencies she had responded to during her career, modified to create training environments that were challenging but safe. Phase 3 was the most innovative aspect of the program. Anna called it integration training, exercises where civilian volunteers worked alongside professional first responders in controlled emergency simulations. This phase allowed volunteers to understand their role in the larger emergency response system and gave professional responders confidence in working with trained civilians. The goal isn't to replace professional emergency services, Anna explained during a presentation to state officials. It's to extend their capacity and effectiveness during large-scale emergencies when resources are stretched thin. 6 months after accepting her new position, Anna was standing in the parking lot of the State Emergency Training Facility, watching the first group of civilian volunteers practice vehicle extraction techniques on donated cars. The sight brought back memories of her early days as an ambulance driver, when every skill had seemed impossibly complex and every emergency had felt overwhelming. Director Mitchell, a young woman approached, wearing the bright yellow vest that identified her as a trainee. I'm Sarah Kim from the Henderson County Group. I wanted to thank you for this program. Anna recognized Sarah from the first week of training. She was a high school science teacher who had been motivated to join the program after witnessing a school bus accident where no one knew how to help until paramedics arrived 20 minutes later. How are you finding the training? Anna asked. Challenging, but incredible, Sarah replied. Last week, during the simulation where we had to treat multiple casualties from a building collapse, I felt exactly like you said we would. Scared, overwhelmed, but somehow able to function because of the training. Anna nodded. That's exactly the goal. You'll never stop feeling scared in a real emergency, but you'll know you can work through the fear. Sarah hesitated, then continued. Director Mitchell, can I ask you something personal? How did you handle it for 30 years? How did you deal with seeing so much pain and loss? It was a question Anna had been asked many times by young paramedics over the years. You learn to focus on what you can control, she said. You can't save everyone. You can't prevent every tragedy, but you can make sure that when someone needs help, you're prepared to give them the best chance possible. She paused, watching other trainees practice emergency communication techniques. And you remember that every person you help has a family, friends, a whole life that continues because of what you did. That weight is hard to carry, but it's also what makes the work meaningful. The Community Emergency Response Network grew rapidly. Within a year, Anna's program had trained over 500 civilian volunteers across 12 counties. The volunteers ranged in age from 18 to 75, came from every profession and background, and shared only one common characteristic: the desire to be useful when others needed help. The program's first real test came during a spring flood that overwhelmed 3 counties simultaneously. Professional emergency services were stretched beyond capacity, with rescue teams working in multiple locations and hospitals treating dozens of flood-related injuries. Anna coordinated the deployment of CERN volunteers from the State Emergency Operations Center, watching on monitors as teams of trained civilians assisted with evacuations, provided first aid at temporary shelters, and managed communication between rescue teams and separated families. Director Mitchell, the state emergency coordinator said as reports came in throughout the day, Your volunteers are performing better than some professional teams I've worked with. Anna felt a deep satisfaction watching the program she had designed function exactly as intended. Civilians who had been ordinary citizens just months before were now working calmly and effectively in crisis situations, extending the reach of professional emergency services and saving lives that might otherwise have been lost. The success of the flood response brought national attention to Anna's program. Emergency management agencies from other states sent representatives to observe the training, and Anna found herself presenting her curriculum at conferences across the country. But the recognition that meant the most to Anna came from an unexpected source. Tyler Harrison walked into the state emergency training facility on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, looking nervous and out of place among the emergency vehicles and training equipment. He had called ahead to schedule a meeting with Anna, but hadn't explained why he wanted to see her. Anna met him in her office, a modest space filled with training manuals, emergency protocols, and photographs from field exercises. Tyler sat across from her desk, looking very different from the confident young businessman who had fired her 18 months earlier. "Anna, I want to apologize again for how I treated you," Tyler began. "But that's not really why I'm here." Anna waited, curious about what had brought him to the training facility. "I've been thinking about what you said that day at the community center," Tyler continued, "about how everyone has something valuable to offer, but you have to be willing to see it. I've been trying to apply that lesson, not just in my business, but in my life." He explained that he had begun volunteering with local community organizations, trying to understand the kinds of work that people like Anna had been doing quietly for decades. He had helped coordinate food drives, assisted with literacy programs, and worked with senior citizens who had been isolated during the pandemic. "Through that work, I met people who had incredible skills and experience that no one was utilizing," Tyler said. "Retired teachers who could help struggling students, former engineers who could mentor young inventors, medical professionals who could provide health education in underserved communities." Anna listened with growing interest as Tyler described his idea. He wanted to create a program that would connect experienced professionals with community organizations that needed their expertise. He envisioned a network where retired teachers could tutor students, former business owners could mentor entrepreneurs, and experienced tradespeople could teach vocational skills. "I call it the experience exchange," Tyler said, "and I want you to help me design it." Anna was surprised by the proposal, but impressed by Tyler's growth since their confrontation at the antique shop. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you understand both sides of this equation," Tyler replied. "You know what it feels like to have valuable experience that people dismiss, and you know how to create programs that actually work. Your emergency response network is proof that you can take expertise and turn it into effective community service." Anna considered the proposal. Her work with CERN was expanding rapidly, but she was always looking for ways to help experienced professionals find meaningful ways to contribute to their communities. "Tell me more about how you envision this working," Anna said. Tyler had clearly thought through the concept carefully. The experience exchange would operate as a matching service, connecting retired professionals with organizations that needed specific skills. But unlike typical volunteer programs, this initiative would focus on meaningful, ongoing commitments that allowed experienced individuals to use their expertise in substantial ways. "For example," Tyler explained, "I met a retired aerospace engineer who was struggling with depression after being forced into early retirement. He felt like all his knowledge was going to waste. At the same time, I learned about a high school that had to cut their advanced physics program because they couldn't find qualified teachers. The experience exchange would connect those two needs, allowing the engineer to teach advanced physics part-time while giving students access to someone with real-world experience in applying scientific principles." Anna saw the potential immediately. The key would be proper training and support, she said. Just because someone has expertise doesn't mean they know how to share it effectively. Exactly, Tyler agreed. That's why I need someone like you to help design the training component. Someone who understands how to prepare people for meaningful service. Over the following months, Anna worked with Tyler to develop the Experience Exchange program. Drawing on her success with CERN, she created a training curriculum that helped experienced professionals learn how to share their knowledge effectively while preparing community organizations to work with volunteer experts. The program launched with a pilot group of 50 professionals and 20 community organizations. A retired nurse began teaching health education at local schools. A former business executive started mentoring young entrepreneurs. A retired carpenter began teaching vocational skills to high school students interested in the trades. What I love about this program, Anna told Tyler during one of their planning meetings, is that it recognizes experience as a resource rather than treating it as a limitation. The Experience Exchange grew to complement Anna's emergency response work perfectly. Both programs were based on the same fundamental principle: that people with experience and expertise should be valued, trained properly, and given meaningful ways to serve their communities. 3 years after Tyler had fired her from the antique shop, Anna found herself working with him as a partner in developing community programs that had gained national recognition. The transformation in their relationship reflected the broader changes that Anna's work had brought to how their community thought about age, experience, and service. The success of both programs led to an invitation that Anna had never expected. The Federal Emergency Management Agency asked her to consult on developing national standards for civilian emergency response training. The Department of Health and Human Services wanted her input on programs that would utilize retired medical professionals during health emergencies. The Department of Education sought her advice on connecting retired educators with schools that needed their expertise. Anna, Director Hawkins said during a meeting to discuss these federal opportunities, you've created something that goes beyond emergency response or community service. You've developed a new model for how society can value and utilize the experience of older adults. Anna was humbled by the recognition, but she remained focused on the practical impact of the work. The goal was never to create a program, she said. The goal was to solve problems by connecting people who can help with people who need help. As Anna's national profile grew, she received invitations to speak at conferences, consult with government agencies, and advise nonprofit organizations. But she never lost sight of the local community work that had started everything. She continued to train civilian emergency responders, now working with teams from multiple states who came to learn her methods. She maintained her involvement with the Experience Exchange, helping experienced professionals find meaningful ways to serve their communities. And she never stopped volunteering at the local community center, where she had first found purpose after her retirement from Metro Emergency Services. On quiet evenings, Anna would sit in her apartment and reflect on the unexpected journey that had brought her from being fired from an antique shop to consulting with federal agencies. She thought about Robert Chen, the elderly man whose life she had saved during the traffic accident, and how that moment had revealed to her community the value of her experience. She thought about Tyler Harrison, who had learned to see people differently and had become a partner in creating meaningful change. Most of all, she thought about the thousands of people who had been trained through her programs, civilians who were now prepared to help during emergencies, experienced professionals who had found new ways to contribute their expertise, communities that had learned to value the knowledge and skills of older adults. Anna's story had begun with dismissal and disrespect, but it had evolved into something much larger. A demonstration that experience is valuable, that age brings wisdom rather than limitation, and that people who have spent decades serving others never really retire. They just find new ways to make a difference. The Community Emergency Response Network and the Experience Exchange became models that were replicated across the country. Anna's training methods were adopted by emergency management agencies in dozens of states. Her approach to connecting experienced professionals with community needs was implemented by nonprofit organizations and government programs nationwide. But the true measure of Anna's impact wasn't found in the programs or the recognition. It was found in the individual lives that had been changed. The heart attack victim who survived because a CERN-trained volunteer knew how to provide effective CPR, the struggling student who graduated because a retired teacher provided tutoring through the experience exchange, the young entrepreneur whose business succeeded because an experienced professional shared their expertise. Anna Mitchell had spent 30 years driving ambulances through city streets, racing to help people in crisis. When she retired, she thought her days of saving lives were over. Instead, she discovered that her most important work was just beginning. By training others to respond to emergencies, she multiplied her impact far beyond what she could have achieved alone. By helping experienced professionals find meaningful ways to serve, she created a legacy that would continue long after she was gone. By refusing to accept that age meant irrelevance, she changed how an entire community thought about the value of experience. Anna's story became a reminder that heroes come in all ages and that the most powerful ones often work quietly, building systems and training others rather than seeking recognition for themselves. She showed that true service doesn't end with retirement. It evolves, deepens, and finds new ways to make the world better. Years later, when people asked Anna about her life and career, she would always redirect the conversation to the work being done by others. She would talk about the CERN volunteers who were saving lives in their communities, the experience exchange participants who were sharing their expertise with the next generation, and the countless ways that experienced people were making a difference when given the opportunity and support to do so. The goal was never to be a hero, Anna would say. The goal was to help other people become heroes. That's how you create lasting change, not by doing everything yourself, but by teaching others to do what needs to be done. Anna Mitchell's legacy wasn't just the lives she had saved during her 30 years as an ambulance driver, though those numbered in the hundreds. Her legacy was the thousands of people she had trained, the programs she had created, and the fundamental shift in thinking she had inspired about the value of experience and the importance of meaningful service. She had proven that being fired from an antique shop could be the beginning of the most important work of your life, that a moment of heroism during a traffic accident could reveal a lifetime of unrecognized service, and that the right person with the right experience could change how an entire society thinks about age, wisdom, and contribution. Most importantly, Anna had shown that every person has something valuable to offer, regardless of their age or appearance. The key is finding leaders who are willing to ask the right questions, listen to the answers, and create opportunities for people to use their gifts in service of others. Anna Mitchell never stopped being a hero. She just learned to multiply her heroism by teaching others to save lives, serve their communities, and value the experience that comes with a lifetime of dedication to helping others. And that, perhaps, was the greatest heroism of all. But Anna's influence was about to reach even further than she had ever imagined. 5 years after the traffic accident that had changed everything, Anna received a call that would take her story full circle. The voice on the phone was familiar, but older, carrying the weight of years and experience. "Mrs. Mitchell, this is Dr. Robert Chen. I don't know if you remember me, but you saved my life outside an antique shop several years ago." Anna remembered him perfectly. Robert Chen, the elderly man who had suffered a heart attack during the car accident, whose life she had stabilized until paramedics arrived. She had often wondered what had happened to him after that day. "Of course I remember you, Mr. Chen. How are you feeling?" "I'm doing very well, thanks to you," Robert replied. "But I'm calling for a different reason. I have a proposition that I think might interest you." Robert explained that he was the retired founder of Chen Industries, a manufacturing company that had grown into one of the region's largest employers before he sold it 5 years earlier. Since his recovery from the heart attack, he had been looking for meaningful ways to use his resources and experience. "Mrs. Mitchell, I've been following your work with the Emergency Response Program and the Experience Exchange. What you've accomplished is remarkable, but I believe it could be much larger." Robert proposed creating the Anna Mitchell Foundation for Community Resilience, a nonprofit organization that would expand her programs nationally while developing new initiatives that connected experienced professionals with community needs. "I want to provide the funding and infrastructure to take your work to the next level," Robert said. "Consider it a thank you for saving my life and an investment in saving many more lives through your programs." Anna was stunned by the offer. "Mr. Chen, that's incredibly generous, but I'm not sure I'm the right person to run a foundation." "Mrs. Mitchell," Robert said firmly, "you are exactly the right person. You've already proven that you can create programs that work, train people effectively, and change how communities think about service and expertise. All you need now are the resources to do it on a larger scale." 2 weeks later, Anna found herself in Robert Chen's spacious office, overlooking the city where she had spent 30 years driving ambulances. The office walls were covered with photographs from his business career, awards from community organizations, and family pictures spanning several generations. "Before we discuss the foundation," Robert said, "I want you to understand why this matters so much to me." He told Anna about the day of the accident, about how he had felt his life slipping away and had been certain he was going to die. He described the moment when Anna had appeared at the car window, how her calm voice and steady presence had given him the strength to keep fighting. "But what impressed me most," Robert continued, "wasn't just that you knew what to do medically. It was how you treated me like a person, not just a patient. You talked to me, kept me engaged, made me feel like my life mattered." He explained that the experience had changed his perspective on aging, community service, and the value of human connection. "I realized that I had been so focused on building my business that I had forgotten about building community. Your programs do both. They use people's skills and experience while creating connections that make communities stronger." The Anna Mitchell Foundation for Community Resilience was officially established 6 months later. The organization's mission was to develop and support programs that connected experienced individuals with community needs, trained civilians in emergency response, and promoted intergenerational collaboration in addressing local challenges. Anna accepted the position of executive director, but insisted that the foundation's work be guided by advisory boards that included representatives from every community it served. She had learned from her years in emergency services that the best solutions came from understanding local needs and involving local people in developing responses. The Foundation's first major initiative was expanding the Community Emergency Response Network to all 50 states. Anna worked with state emergency management agencies to adapt her training curriculum to local conditions and needs, while maintaining the core principles that had made the program successful. "Every community faces different types of emergencies," Anna explained during a presentation to Foundation board members. "Coastal areas need to prepare for hurricanes, mountain regions for avalanches, urban areas for industrial accidents. But the fundamental skills of staying calm, working as a team, and providing effective assistance are universal." Within 2 years, The foundation had trained over 10,000 civilian emergency responders across the country. These volunteers had assisted in responses to floods, tornadoes, industrial accidents, and natural disasters, providing crucial support that extended the capabilities of professional emergency services. The success of the national CERN expansion led to international interest in Anna's training methods. Emergency management agencies from Canada, Australia, and several European countries sent representatives to study the program. Anna found herself consulting with organizations around the world, adapting her curriculum for different cultures and emergency response systems. What amazes me, Anna told Robert during one of their monthly foundation meetings, is how universal the principles are. Whether you're training volunteers in rural Montana or urban Tokyo, the core challenges are the same: helping people function effectively under pressure while working together toward common goals. The Foundation's second major initiative expanded the experience exchange concept into what Anna called wisdom networks, structured programs that connected experienced professionals with specific community challenges. One pilot program paired retired engineers with schools that needed help developing science and technology education. Another connected former business executives with nonprofit organizations that needed strategic planning assistance. A third brought retired healthcare workers into underserved communities to provide health education and basic medical screening. The goal isn't just to find volunteer opportunities for experienced people, Anna explained to a group of program coordinators. It's to create sustained partnerships that benefit both the experienced professionals and the communities they serve. The Wisdom Networks grew rapidly, with programs operating in over 200 communities within 3 years. The Foundation documented significant improvements in educational outcomes, organizational effectiveness, and community health in areas where the programs were implemented. But perhaps the most meaningful expansion of Anna's work came through an unexpected partnership. Tyler Harrison, who had remained involved with the local experience exchange program, approached Anna with an idea that combined his business background with her community development expertise. "Anna, I've been thinking about something," Tyler said during a visit to the Foundation offices. "All of our programs are wonderful, but they're mainly reaching people who are already inclined toward community service. What about people who don't even realize they have something valuable to contribute?" Tyler proposed creating discovery workshops, programs designed to help people identify their skills, experience, and interests while connecting them with community needs they might not have considered. "I meet people every day who feel like they don't have anything special to offer," Tyler explained. "They've been told they're too old, or not qualified, or don't have the right credentials. But everyone has something valuable. They just need help recognizing it." The Discovery Workshops became one of the Foundation's most innovative programs. Participants went through assessments that identified their skills and interests, learned about community challenges that matched their capabilities, and received training in how to contribute effectively. A retired secretary discovered that her organizational skills were perfect for helping homeless shelters manage their resources more efficiently. A former factory worker found that his hands-on experience made him an excellent mentor for young people interested in manufacturing careers. A homemaker who had raised 6 children became a valuable family counselor for parents struggling with behavioral challenges. What Tyler understood, Anna reflected during a Foundation retreat, is that everyone has expertise in something, even if they don't think of it as expertise. A person who raised children successfully has knowledge about child development, conflict resolution, and resource management that can benefit other families. The Discovery Workshops helped thousands of people find meaningful ways to contribute to their communities while addressing critical needs in education, social services, healthcare, and community development. As the foundation's work expanded, Anna found herself in increasing demand as a speaker and consultant. She addressed conferences on aging, community development, emergency management, and nonprofit leadership. Universities invited her to lecture on program development and community engagement. Government agencies sought her advice on policies that affected older adults and community volunteers. Despite the recognition and growth, Anna remained focused on the practical impact of the Foundation's work. She insisted that every program be evaluated based on measurable outcomes: lives saved, problems solved, skills developed, communities strengthened. Recognition is nice, Anna told her staff during a planning meeting, but what matters is whether we're actually making a difference in people's lives. The Foundation's impact was indeed measurable. Emergency response volunteers trained through CERN had assisted in over 500 disaster responses, with documented evidence of lives saved and injuries prevented. Wisdom Network participants had contributed over 100,000 hours of expert assistance to community organizations. Discovery Workshop graduates had initiated dozens of new community programs addressing local needs. But the statistics didn't capture the most important changes that Anna's work had inspired. Communities that participated in foundation programs reported improved relationships between different age groups, with younger and older residents working together on common challenges. Organizations that hosted experienced volunteers found that the intergenerational collaboration led to more creative solutions and better outcomes. Individuals who participated in the programs reported increased sense of purpose, improved mental health, and stronger community connections. What Anna has created, Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, a gerontologist who studied the Foundation's programs, wrote in a research paper, goes beyond volunteer coordination or emergency preparedness. She has developed a new model for how communities can value and utilize the full range of human resources available to them. The research on Anna's programs attracted attention from policymakers and social scientists who were grappling with the challenges of an aging population. Instead of viewing older adults as a burden on social services, Anna's work demonstrated how they could be valuable resources for addressing community challenges. 7 years after founding the Anna Mitchell Foundation, Anna was invited to testify before a congressional committee on aging and community development. She found herself in Washington, D.C., sitting at a witness table in a formal hearing room, preparing to share her insights with federal lawmakers. Honorable committee members, Anna began her testimony. I want to tell you about what happens when we stop seeing age as a limitation and start seeing experience as a resource. She described the evolution of her work, from her 30 years as an ambulance driver through her current role leading a national foundation. She shared stories of lives saved by civilian emergency responders, communities strengthened by experienced volunteers, and individuals who had found new purpose through meaningful service. The question isn't whether older adults can contribute to their communities, Anna concluded. The question is whether we will create systems that enable them to contribute effectively. Her testimony led to the introduction of legislation that would provide federal funding for community resilience programs based on Anna's model. The bill, known as the Community Wisdom Act, passed with bipartisan support and provided grants for organizations developing intergenerational service programs. As Anna's influence grew at the national level, she never lost sight of the local work that had started everything. She continued to visit communities where foundation programs were operating, meeting with volunteers, observing training sessions, and learning about local adaptations of her methods. During one such visit to a rural community in Montana, Anna met Margaret Thompson, a 72-year-old retired teacher who had become a local coordinator for the Wisdom Network program. Mrs. Mitchell, Margaret said, I want you to know what this program has meant to our community. Before you started this work, people like me were just seen as old folks who had done our time and should step aside. Now we're valued for what we know and what we can contribute. Margaret explained how the Wisdom Network had helped her rural community address challenges that had seemed insurmountable. Retired farmers were teaching sustainable agriculture techniques to younger growers. Former business owners were helping local entrepreneurs develop their ventures. Experienced teachers were providing tutoring and mentoring to students in understaffed schools. But the most important thing, Margaret continued, is how it's changed the way we see ourselves and each other. Young people in our community now talk to older residents differently. They ask for our advice, they value our experience. And we older folks feel useful again, like we still have something important to offer. These conversations reminded Anna why her work mattered and kept her grounded in the human impact of the programs she had developed. As the foundation approached its 10th anniversary, Anna reflected on the journey that had brought her from retirement crisis to national recognition. She thought about the traffic accident that had revealed her worth to her community, the young business owner who had learned to value experience, and the thousands of people whose lives had been changed through programs that connected skills with needs. The irony, Anna told Robert Chen during one of their regular foundation meetings, is that I spent 30 years thinking my most important work was behind me when I responded to emergency calls. It turns out that my most important work was learning to teach others to respond to emergencies, to value their own experience, and to find meaningful ways to serve. Robert, now in his 80s but still actively involved with the foundation, nodded in understanding. Anna, you saved my life that day outside the antique shop. But what you've done since then has saved thousands of lives and changed how an entire society thinks about aging and community service. The Anna Mitchell Foundation continued to grow and evolve, developing new programs and expanding to new communities. Anna remained actively involved as executive director, but she also began preparing the next generation of leaders to carry the work forward. She established a leadership development program that trained younger professionals to work alongside experienced volunteers in managing community resilience initiatives. She created mentorship programs that paired foundation staff with experienced community leaders. She developed succession planning processes that would ensure the foundation's work would continue long after her own retirement. The goal was never to create programs that depended on me, Anna explained to her staff during a strategic planning retreat. The goal was to create systems and approaches that could be sustained and expanded by others who share the vision of communities that value all their members. Anna's legacy extended far beyond the specific programs she had created. She had fundamentally changed how many communities thought about aging, service, and the value of experience. Her work had demonstrated that retirement didn't mean withdrawal from community life, but rather transition to new forms of contribution. Educational institutions began incorporating Anna's principles into their programs for aging studies, social work, and community development. Emergency management agencies adopted her training methods as standard practice for civilian volunteer programs. Nonprofit organizations used her models for connecting experienced volunteers with meaningful service opportunities. What Anna Mitchell understood, wrote Dr. James Wilson, a professor of social policy at Georgetown University, is that the challenges facing modern communities require all available resources, including the wisdom, skills, and experience of older adults. Her work provides a roadmap for how communities can tap into this underutilized resource while creating meaningful roles for people who have decades of valuable experience to share. As Anna entered her 70s, she began to consider her own transition from active leadership to advisory roles within the foundation. But she remained committed to the principles that had guided her work from the beginning: that everyone has something valuable to contribute, that experience is a resource rather than a limitation, and that communities are strongest when they engage all their members in addressing common challenges. The traffic accident that had revealed Anna's heroic past had led to a second career that was even more impactful than her first. By training others, developing systems, and changing attitudes, she had multiplied her individual impact exponentially. Anna Mitchell had proven that true heroism isn't just about individual acts of courage. It's about creating lasting change that enables others to be heroic as well. Her story became a testament to the power of experience, the importance of recognizing value in all community members, and the potential for transformation that exists when society learns to see aging as an asset rather than a liability. Most importantly, Anna had shown that it's never too late to begin the most important work of your life, and that sometimes being dismissed or underestimated can be the first step toward discovering your true purpose and potential for impact. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to hear what inspired you the most. And where in the world are you watching from? Let us know below.